If you haven't heard about Anchor, it's the easiest way to make a podcast. Let me explain. It's free. There's creation tools that allow you to record and edit your podcast right from your phone or computer. Anchor will distribute your podcast for you, so it can be heard on Spotify, Apple Podcast, and many more. You can make money from your podcast with no minimum listenership. It's everything you need to make a podcast in one place. Welcome to Not My Rabbit Hole with Tere Joyce. Orlando the cat just joined me during the broadcast. He's my kitty cat who's making a big sensation on YouTube on my shorts at notmyrabbithole.com. Orlando's been, I uploaded a video today where he was eating some kitty snacks. And also, I want to let you guys know, too, that I do have a great CBD pet oil that is part of, I'm a distributor for CBD BioCare. As a matter of fact, I just ordered myself some coffee pods with CBD, which I'm going to be trying out here in the future. But I have used a CBD oil, not on Orlando because he's a young cat, but I did use them on Jasmine, one of my friend's cats. That had an injury, and I wanted to give it to him instead of having the heavy dosage of the other type of medicine that they had for him. You can't OD your animal on CBD oil, so please do check out my website at greatcbddeals.com. So today, the topic is the blowing up of the Georgia Guidestones. And when it happened, I happened to text my mom, and I said, hey, the Georgia Guidestones got blown up. And she said, what are the Georgia Guidestones? Then I realized that a lot of people don't know. They didn't even know what the Georgia Guidestones were or how they were part of several different conspiracies out there. And so today I'm going to first start with what the Georgia Guidestones are, the research that I've done, just explain it, and we will go from there. Hopefully, my flipping up my pages in my notebooks will not bother you too much. I actually watched an episode of Brad Meltzer's Decoded, which was on the History Channel just recently. I wouldn't say recently, but it was uploaded to their YouTube channel about a year ago. It's the first season of Brian Meltzer's Decoded, and it's episode 10. I will make sure that I source that video in the description here. Also, I want to let you know that I will be sourcing a link to my CBD BioCare page. And when you do buy something from my page, you get a 5% discount. Plus, they're always running a lot of different specials as well. All right, so... Oh, wow, perfect. It just came to a perfect ending on that song. All right, so I watched Brad Meltzer's Decoded, and it looks like it was recorded before 2012. So the episode leaned very heavily on the 2012 conspiracy. So first, before we start, I want to, you know what, I thought I had this pulled up here, but it'll just take me a moment. I want to read what is actually on the Georgia Guidestones. Um, a lot of people believe that the Georgia Guidestones are satanic, and we're going to get into that in just a moment too. So give me just a second. I'm going to pull this up here. Let me see. All right. Now, I am looking at Wikipedia, and I know that Wikipedia isn't necessarily the best source of information, but it was really quite interesting that right when it happened, there was a quick update on the Georgia Guidestones. Okay, so the inscription. I'm assuming the inscription is accurate on Wikipedia. If I am wrong at something here, please do find me. Find me on Twitter at Tere Joyce, or leave a message. Find me on Facebook, but I'm pretty sure this is what is actually on the Guidestones. Okay, number 1, maintain humanity under 500 million. Maintain humanity under 500 million in perpetual balance with nature. Guide reproduction wisely, improving fitness and diversity. That was 2. 3, unite humanity with a living new language. 4, rule passion, faith, tradition, and all things with tempered reason. 5, protect people and nations with fair laws and just courts. 6, let all nations rule internally, resolving external disputes in a world court. 7, avoid petty laws and useless officials. 8, balance personal rights with social duties. 9, prize truth, beauty, love, seeking harmony with the infinite. 10, be not a cancer on the earth, leave room for nature. Leave room for nature. And some people call this, the satanic 10 commandments. That's what it's been labeled. All right, so I watched the episode of Brad Meltzer's Decoded, and I took some notes, and so I'm going to go through them and give you the abridged version of what was on that episode. The Georgia Guidestones are in Atlanta, Georgia. They're 107 tons of solid granite. It is in 8 different languages, coded messages, and the Guidestones are precisely crafted to track astrological and solar cycles. Okay, many people believe that the Georgia Guidestones is a sign of the end of days, and also a call for genocide on a massive scale. However, Yoko Ono praises their message as a strong call to rational thinking, and opponents say it is the 10 commandments of the Antichrist. All right, so now, the person who they say had the stones made went by the name of R.C. Christian. And according to the series and the research on the series, many people believe that R.C. Christian, R.C. is the symbol for the Rosicrucian fraternity. And I also want to point out too that when on top of the structure, from the aerial view, it looks like a Rosicrucian cross. Now, we just did have an explosion happen that took down one of the tablets, or one of the part of the structure, and because it made it unbalanced, and basically it was going to crumble. It's a hazard. They took down the entire monument. All right. Ebert County Sheriff's Department has surveillance cameras. And right now, I'm assuming it's the surveillance cameras that caught a lot of the news sources are seeing it looks like a man dressed in black that ran behind the one tablet that went down before it exploded and came back around. And then there was a gray car taking off. So it definitely looks like it was exploded by a person and not by lightning, because there are tons of conspiracies going on around YouTube, and one of them was that it was struck by lightning. However, it's got to be one big, huge lightning bolt for 107 tons of solid granite and 8 language to come down and explode like that. So even just logically thinking, that conspiracy is really lame. But we'll get more into that later. All right. So when the tablet says, get the population down to 500 million people, it really means that 6 billion people have to go. And this has really fueled a lot of or for some people who talk about the New World Order and the plan for the elites to commit genocide on the human population, the Georgia Guidestones has always been a reference of proof for that. All right, so there is so the Rosicrucian theory is pretty strong. There is evidence that some people believe, and they believe that there's evidence that there's a small cabal of occultists that built it to bring about the apocalypse. And some people believe it to be a humanity's tombstone. So not only was it, instructions for the people who survive the genocide, but it was also erected to be a tombstone for all the people who would be potentially dying. All right. Now, there is a theory that the Rosicrucians who made the tombstone, that they were into psychic ability and into astral projection, and also they believe that they can move things with their minds. And so there's also a theory that there's a mind control aspect of it. And they even brought up a conspiracy about how Saran was mind controlled by Rosicrucians, because apparently he claimed to be a Rosicrucian, or was looking into being a Rosicrucian. And so they believe it to be an aspect of mind control. And there's a book that talks a lot about mind control and what you can do with your mind. And it's called The Wisdom of the Mystic Masters by Joseph J. Weed. Okay, so now on the show, this was a really interesting part of the broadcast, because on the show they interviewed a woman who called herself a student of the Rosicrucians, and she says that anybody who calls themselves a Rosicrucian probably isn't really a Rosicrucian, because anybody who is following or studying they always say, I'm studying the Rosicrucians. They don't call themselves a Rosicrucian as if they were a Christian. And they believe that during the time of, in Rome, when Constantine decided to create the religions, or say that sanction religions as being okay and combine church with state, that Jesus was actually a man who became a god. He was not a person from God who became a man. That Jesus had the alchemy teachings, and he would tell his students and people to the future is that you will be able to do what I can and more. And, that is a passage in the Bible. And they believe that he I don't want to use the word ascension because that's pretty much a trigger word, but that he became a god, became of God, that he was able to, walk on water and, be immortal because he had brought himself to that level in spirituality. And he had evolved to that level. They say, or they believe, that when the apocalypse happens and you are on Judgment Day, it's not that God, there's nowhere in the Bible in Revelations that said that God will judge you upon your faith, but he will judge you upon your works. So they do say that it is your works that matter as well, right? It's you have to show that you have become like Christ. And so that is how the Rosicrucians believe. And the real Rosicrucians do not, they think that if you are, you've decided to be God and you've decided to make the population less, then that is a violation to human liberties. And that's not okay in their belief and their philosophy. Now, they do say that, well, maybe the person was a Rosicrucian, like he did practice the Rosicrucian, but he had his own thoughts on what Rosicrucian is, and that was his own interpretation, was to make the monuments. Okay, now another person that was interviewed on the show, which I thought was really interesting, was Jay Weidner. And Jay Weidner he was part of producing Gaia TV. Now, I know that he stepped down from it, but on the show, they said that he was doing a documentary on the Guidestones, and they said that he was a Rosicrucian researcher. And according to him, they believe that there was going to be a massive catastrophe, and this would possibly be a solar flare, like a solar type of catastrophe that apparently happens every 11 to 13 million years, or 1,000 years. 11 to 13 million years. Might have been 1,000. I could have that wrong. Forgive me. I've taken notes and I'm like, is that 1,000 or is that 1,000,000? Okay. Anyway, forgive me for that one. But 11 to 13 something, right? And they believe, and again, let me reiterate, is that this was made before 2012. So some of the people on the show want to add that all up together. Like in 2012, it's either solar flare or, some sort of cataclysm is going to happen. Like NASA said that there was a solar cycle that was going to flare up in 2012. They talked about an asteroid possibly hitting the planet. There was an astronomy professor that was on the show that talked about how there might be a coronal massive solar flare, but that would just affect the solar grid, not necessarily wipe out the population. And so, but a lot of this was going around that theory, and then also the possible theory about Earth changes happening, a theory proposed by Edgar Cayce in the early 19th century. So they brought in the whole Edgar Cayce aspect of Earth changes and some sort of catastrophic event that would happen. Now, most likely it has been determined that, based on the belief that maybe something catastrophic might happen, that it was like the monument was brought up for people that would survive, like the people that survived this catastrophic event that's supposed to be happening to humanity. Again, too, when these went up, the Cold War was going on. People thought we were going to blow up each other. So this would be the new guide for the new humanity. that was like when a lot of people feel the purposes. Now, there is also a conspiracy that Ted Turner's involved with all of this, and that's been pretty much debunked. All that happened with Ted Turner was he did some sort of interview where he said the population should be lowered for our survival or something like that. And somehow this got tied up and construed with everything else. Now, when they were talking about this catastrophe happening, that they were predicted, that they knew, they had knowledge of something happening that was going to destroy places in the world. But more specifically, it looks like they show a map of the United States. Apparently, there's only 7 places that or states, that areas that are going to survive this event. And it's not going to be California. It's not going to be Oregon. It's not going to be New York or New Jersey or anything on the East Coast. The places that are the safe zone, and they showed this on the show too, are Atlanta. That's why the Guidestones are in Atlanta, Georgia, because they're expected to be, the people who live there are the ones that are expected to survive the catastrophic event that apparently the Rosicrucians or the alchemists knew was coming. And also the other places are Spokane, Washington, Phoenix, Arizona, Denver, Colorado, Kansas City, Missouri, Chicago, Illinois, Washington, D.C., and Orlando, Florida. So I'm thinking maybe it's time to consider, moving to Orlando. Florida, still by the coastline, still great weather. You got Disneyland. You can't go wrong. All right. On that note, I'm going to take a break, and we'll be right back after this musical interlude.
I love the chase and the hunt, and I set the pace when I'm running. I always take what I want, and I always give it 100. Don't need a bank, no, I'm funded. Play the game like it's nothing. I'm always thankful for something. Don't take for granted, stay humble. Now wake up! It's time to look at the enemy. Look in the mirror where he is no friend to me. It's not working out, maybe it's the chemistry. It's time to break up so I can make a better me. Better believe in your mind, cause it's everything. You can mold, shape, find almost anything. All it takes is some time and some clarity to find your identity. It's mind over everything. And when I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, don't stop. I'm so tired, no, I'm never turning back. I won't stop, I'ma fight until there's nothing left. It's so what? You're gonna be hurting back, cause I've been to hell and back. You don't wanna make me mad, I stay strong. You will never see me crack. And if you get in my way, you gonna feel the wrath. Gotta say it to my face while he's looking back. Mirror breaks after math, when I hate, I attack. When I feel like this, I'm immortal. 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 Don't stop, don't stop.
All right, welcome back to Not My Rabbit Hole with Tere Joyce. All right, so I want to mention a few things in regards to what I just talked about earlier. And I forgot to add one extra little part of the Brad Meltzer's Decoded episode. And that was about how they explored the mind's ability to move objects or to astral project, mostly move objects. And they went into this study that was being done where they were brain mapping people, putting a little shield over their head, and that they were giving them an image of a dot and going, if you can move this dot forward to this little red spot, then you're actually moving the arm of the robot. And they were experimenting this with people who had spinal injuries, or maybe they couldn't move at all, and they were giving people the ability to adjust the temperature in the room by their mind using the technology. And it was very interesting. And one of the main guys on the show ended up trying it and moving the robot arm. And now, mind you, this was filmed before 2012, so just imagine how the interface between the brain and technology has advanced since then. A lot. I mean, we're looking at more than 10 years ago that this episode was originally aired. So now I want to take you to today and about the explosion and the reaction to the explosion. And I want to discuss a little bit of how the media, the mainstream media, has been talking about this. And then I also want to talk about how the alternative media, or the conspiracy media, the UFO media, the